You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
I get asked all the time what to do. New counselors say, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to plan next? How do I run this group? How do I teach this lesson? And I know how you feel. I mean, this profession doesn't really come with an instruction manual, and we definitely didn't learn all of this in grad school. So over the years, I've developed curriculum plans and resources to support students, and those are the things that you'll see, in my TPT store and on my blog, and that's how I'd love serving you guys. But I decided I needed something more too. I wanted to really support you guys more and build an awesome community. So that's why I created Impact, my school counselor membership program. So each month, our members receive monthly curriculum plans, ready-to-download resources, and video implementation guides. So they have everything they need to best support students and to make their counseling lives just a little bit easier. In addition, I deliver quarterly live professional development trainings. We have a fun and active Facebook group where we all hang out and collaborate and do fun giveaways and challenges. An essential resource library full of resources that you may need all year long, like a grief group or divorce discussion cards. And the best part, our community live chats. So we do Facebook Live and Zoom calls every month where we all get together, kind of like a round table, troubleshoot tough cases, pick each other's brains. It's a lot of fun. So if this sounds like something you need or something you're interested in, send me a message on Instagram at Bright Futures Counseling or head over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact. Okay, let's go to the show. Hey there! One more thing before we dive into today's episode. I want to invite you to hang out with me tonight. I will be doing a free live training on how to use individual counseling curriculum to engage students and effectively track data. I will be giving away a free individual curriculum to anyone who attends, so I would love to see you there. You can also earn a PD certificate for the training as well. I'm doing one tonight and one tomorrow night. I'm offering 2 different times. You can pick the one that works best for you. Head over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training to sign up, or you can go to the link in the show notes. Okay, now for real, let's go to the show. Hey there, how are you guys? I hope you're having a wonderful week and happy March, right? Oh my gosh, it is already March. So I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. We have so much fun stuff going on in March. First up, you just heard me talk about Impact, my membership for school counselors. It is our 1-year anniversary. I literally cannot believe it. It feels like we just started. So members, be on the lookout for lots of fun stuff this month. We're doing all kinds of giveaways and fun stuff in the group. So get excited and let's all celebrate. And if you're not a member but you want to be, let me know and we'll get you all the details. The other exciting thing we have is introducing Counselor Stories. So this is a new segment I'm going to be doing on the podcast that I'm really excited about. Basically, the podcast just feels like a one-way platform. It's like me talking to you, which is great. I do love to chat, but I want to talk with you and hear from you as well. So I'm like, how can I do this? And while I do like the idea of doing interview-style podcast, and maybe I'll one day get there, I used to have another podcast and it was all interview format, and it's just a lot of work and it's kind of hard to coordinate. So I find it easy just for me to ramble and hopefully help you guys. But I did want to hear from you. So I was trying to think what's a creative way I can do this? And I decided to do a segment called Counselor Stories. So in Counselor Stories, you can submit a clip. So just a casual clip on your phone, just record yourself talking, no microphone, nothing fancy. You can literally be in your car, it doesn't matter. But I want to hear your counselor story. So I want to hear something funny that a student said that day. Or I want to hear something life-changing that happened for you as a result of your job, or a win that you had with a tough case, or something you learned working with a student. So it can be the funniest thing, the most exciting thing, maybe something a little sad you just need to share, just a fun counselor story you can share with us. Obviously, you'll keep student names anonymous and stuff, but I just thought it would be a cool way to do this. So we have a Google form we're going to link to in the show notes. And you can upload a quick audio clip of you telling me something about your day as a counselor. And it'll be so refreshing and fun just to hear from real counselors all over the U.S., all over the world on what's going on at their sites. And we can all celebrate the wins and laugh at the funny stuff and support each other through the tough stuff. So I'm excited for it. Check out the Google form. Please submit them. The more we get, the better. Like I said, at the end of the episodes, I'm going to start playing them. So stick around. There might be one on the end of this episode. Okay, Also, this month we're going to be focusing on anxiety. So I said it's so exciting, even though it is kind of a sad topic. But basically, I decided, typically with the podcast, I'm teaching you counseling strategies and tools that you can use generally across topics. So I'll, teach you tips for facilitating a small group regardless of topic, or tips for collecting data regardless of topic, or how to facilitate certain meetings with parents or different programs or initiatives. I was thinking, how can I make this more specialized? Because I love to give you guys a takeaway. And my goal with the podcast is for you to be listening in your car. So I keep them shorter episodes so you can listen on your commute, learn something, and literally use it that day. So easy to implement strategies is what I'm after. So I was thinking, what if I sprinkle in some monthly topics that have to do with a counseling topic, and then all month we'll talk about strategies on how you can help students who are struggling with that topic. So I hope you like this idea. I'm excited about it. So we're going to start this month with anxiety. So all month I'll be talking to you about anxiety and how we can help support students who are struggling in this area. I'll be providing some strategies you can use with these students and hopefully just give you a little fresh perspective and support so you feel confident to help these students who are struggling in this area. Okay, so first up, what is anxiety? I decided I was just going to Google it because we talk about it so much. But anxiety is one of those things, I could say like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious. I'm waiting to hear back on this test result or something. Or you could also say, wow, this person has severe anxiety. And that means two very different things, right? So I really wanted to clarify, and I didn't want to just spitball my own definitions. So I decided to do some research. So first up on my Google search, and I wanted to pick sources that were reliable, of course, and I will cite them in the show notes. But first up, I Googled what is anxiety, and this is from Medline Plus, which at first I was like, what is this website? Because sometimes there's so many websites that sound official, but they're just nonsensical. But this is actually a service of the National Library of Medicine, and it's a government website, so pretty legit. And it defines anxiety as a feeling of fear, dread, and uneasiness. It might cause you to sweat, feel restless and tense, and have a rapid heartbeat. It can be a normal reaction to stress. For example, you might feel anxious when faced with a difficult problem at work, before taking a test, or before making an important decision. So that was their definition. So that is what anxiety is like. And I think all of us can relate to it, right? It's a normal reaction to stress. We've all felt this before, right? We've all felt anxious at some point. Just like our other emotions and feelings that we experience, it's totally normal. But then I looked up anxiety disorders because there are more severe forms of anxiety. So the Mayo Clinic on their website has the definition of an anxiety disorder. Experiencing occasional anxiety is a normal part of life. However, people with anxiety disorders frequently have intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. Often, anxiety disorders involve repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety and fear or terror that reach a peak within minutes, panic attacks. These feelings of anxiety and panic interfere with daily activities, are difficult to control, are out of proportion to the actual danger, and can last a long time. You may avoid places or situations to prevent these feelings. Symptoms may start during childhood or the teen years and continue into adulthood. Okay, so I'm sure you can see the clear difference. That definition is way heavier, and it's saying how this anxiety is crippling. It's interfering with your everyday life, right? People are unable to do what they want to do because their anxiety is interfering with it, right? And some key points I wanted to point out here, obviously the panic attacks, so the physical response is very high. And then it says that they interfere with daily activities, are difficult to control, so that's a big one. And this one especially are out of proportion to the actual danger and can last a long time. So they may not be a rational reaction to the danger, right? So for example, if the test is over or whatever the anxiety-inducing event is finished, the anxiety may persist because, again, this is an anxiety disorder. And there's several different anxiety disorders as well. So before we dive in deeper with how we can support our students with anxiety, I really wanted to differentiate between, the everyday anxiety that a lot of people experience and then the more intense anxiety disorders. So if it's a disorder, we can still support these students, right? Like we may have students who are experiencing anxiety, and then we may have students who are who have anxiety disorders. And if they have an anxiety disorder, we can definitely still support them in the school setting. We definitely want, to support them, but outside professional help is recommended as well. So we want to be sure, to make sure that they're getting the complete support they need, and that may be something that we're not qualified to offer them in the school setting. Remember, we're not here to diagnose, but we do want to get them the support they need. And I was looking in a Facebook group the other day, one of the counselor ones, and it was a great point. Someone was like, if I refer to outside services, does my school have to pay for it? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a good point, because I'm constantly telling you guys, after you collect your data, you can then refer to outside services if necessary. But I should clarify, because if you do make like a formal referral, then the school may be obligated to pay for it. And while that would be wonderful for the school or the government to pay for children's mental health services, I don't think your school would be very happy about that. So they do, hopefully insurance covers it. Anyways, it's a whole different conversation. But the wording does matter. So when you're talking to parents, instead of saying like, I recommend that your child does this, you could just say like, have you considered, talking to a professional? Here are some that I can recommend. Here are some contacts that I can give to you. And you can have like a community contact guide for them to reference. So again, if it's an anxiety disorder, we definitely want to support them in the school setting, but we do want to make sure if we think it's pretty serious or severe, we want to bring that attention to their parents and to let their parents know that there are other support options available as well. But then, of course, there is just anxiety that all students are experiencing. And you don't need me to tell you, like, anxiety right now is probably at an all-time high. We've been in a pandemic for 2 years, and then social media is really intense for kids right now. Academic expectations are higher than ever before. So all students, I think, are experiencing anxiety at some point in their life. So that's why we want to approach it through the 3 tiers, and including that tier 1 preventative approach of a class lesson. So next week, I'm going to talk to you more about that class lesson piece and how you can serve all students. And a big piece of anxiety counseling is that we want to equip students with the skills they need to cope with their anxiety while they're in this clear space, while they're thinking rationally and they're not in that reactive mode, right? Because I know, so I've been kind of practicing this with my toddler. He's only 20 months, but I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to teach him to take deep breaths when he's angry. Because my friend said she was doing it with her toddler, and I was like, wow, like, why did I never think of this? I tell kids to do this all the time, but for some reason I thought he was too young. But I mean, he's super smart and he understands all kinds of other stuff, so why not try it? So he was upset the other day, and I was like, let's take some deep breaths. And I kind of started modeling. He didn't really get into it. But then I'm like, hello, Rachel, why are you trying to teach him the coping strategy while he's upset? The better thing to do would be to teach this to him while he's calm, while he's in like a learning state, using that prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala and just reacting. So I was thinking I need to teach this to him, while he's in a space where he's ready to learn it. And then hopefully after enough practicing, he can do it when he's, in that heightened space as well. So that's something we always want to consider with our kiddos, which is why that tier 1 piece is so important. Like I said, I'll talk about that next week. Now, when you're thinking about your students you're going to see with anxiety, there's a few ways you may determine who these students are. Of course, a referral-based practice is what we usually recommend. So parents and teachers, or maybe student self-referrals, they will say, hey, I need help with counseling for this. I'm struggling in this area, or my student is doing this, or my child is doing this. Can you please help them? So we'll have that. But also you could do a student screener. So this is kind of like a needs assessment. A needs assessment is something we give out to teachers, and then they're answering questions kind of to get, the school climate and a pulse on the school and how things are going and where people think the perceived needs are. But a student screener is where you would screen students and see where they're struggling, and you would encourage them to be honest and answer the questions. I remember doing these in high school. I think we had one. And it was kind of on like risky behavior. I don't really remember what the purpose of the screener was. But the questions were like, have you tried alcohol? Have you done this? And I remember being like so scared to be honest, because I thought they were going to like use our answers and come back at us. So clearly I'm admitting I had tried alcohol. Okay, not great. But you could send a student mental health screener. So this is something you would send out to all students. Obviously you want to run this by your admin and, make sure that it's a good idea for your school site, but you could send it to homeroom teachers, and then they would then give it to students, and hopefully students would be honest, and you can then look at the results to see which students are, in need of support with their anxiety. Because students may answer and say, I feel super anxious, but you're thinking, why didn't they do a self-referral? Why didn't they tell me? But remember, they may not even know that's an option. So sometimes we're so used to talking about referrals all the time or talking about kids coming to see us all the time, we just assume that everyone knows the process, but you never know. So sometimes a screener or general, this can be as simple as a Google form, a 5-question check-in. I did something similar with minute meetings with middle and high school students at the international school, where I just kind of asked them some questions, anything like that to kind of screen your school population and to get a pulse on the anxiety level at the school and how are kids coping. So I want to read this from ASCA. They have a list of signs you may see if a student is feeling anxious, but they can't really verbalize why they're feeling anxious. So this is a really good thing to know as well, just to kind of keep in the back of your mind. If you're starting to see these symptoms, then you may know that the student's struggling with anxiety, even if they didn't admit to it or say it on a screener or tell you or tell anyone, right? Perhaps they didn't tell anyone because they are unaware that they're experiencing anxiety. They know this feeling's happening, but they don't really know what it is. They can't label it. Perhaps they are young and they don't have the verbal ability to explain how they're feeling, or perhaps they are just embarrassed or they're not really sure what's going on. So you may be seeing these signs, and that's a good indicator that it could be anxiety and that they may need more support. I do want you to be mindful because these signs are often confused with ADHD as well. So I'm going to read the list. Like I said, this is from ASCA. I'll link to the article in the show notes as well. Attendance problems, clinginess, separation anxiety, panic attacks, academic problems, decline in schoolwork, frequent urination, frequent crying, difficulty concentrating, staying focused. So that one specifically, difficulty concentrating, staying focused, may be, you may be confusing them with ADHD. So just something to keep in mind. Blushing, sweating, feeling weak or tired, excessive worrying, health problems such as headaches or an upset stomach, avoidance of people or situations, sleeping problems, lots of what ifs. So that's their list. And then they go on to say, again, this is from ASCA, quote, everyone has bad days and may exhibit one or more of these symptoms, but a pattern should raise red flags. Although diagnosing anxiety is not the school counselor's job, it is important to be cognizant of the types of anxiety disorders. These can include generalized anxiety, separation anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, social anxiety, or panic disorder. Any of these can affect a student's ability to perform well in school. Students with anxiety may also be at risk for developing other mental health issues such as depression, drug alcohol use, and suicidal ideation. So I thought this is interesting. It's going on to specify those anxiety disorders that I mentioned earlier in the episode. And then, like I was saying before, totally agree with them, not our job to diagnose, but is important for us to be aware of these things, right? And again, all of those symptoms or signs that I read indicate anxiety, but they don't necessarily indicate the anxiety disorder. These just indicate that a student is experiencing anxiety. And from time to time, totally normal, but a red flag is if you're seeing a pattern or if they're experiencing one of more of these, often. So for example, as I was reading these, I was reflecting on a time when I felt anxious in school. It was in elementary school, and we had 70s day for some kind of like spirit week. And I don't know, I was kind of obsessed with hippies and stuff when I was that age. I remember like the Peace Frogs shirts were really big, and Chick-fil-A even had like a tie-dye hippie cow at some point. So I was really into it. So I'm not sure why I didn't want to dress up. I think I did, but I don't know. Maybe I was wanting to do more like bell bottoms or something like that, peace signs. But my mom was helping me, and my outfit was really cool in retrospect. I think I would even actually wear it in all seriousness now. But she had me in like this flower child, this floral long dress, and these cool little like John Lennon glasses. Super cute. I think I even had flowers in my hair. Me and my sister are in the car. We're going to get dropped off at elementary school. My sister gets out, no worries. I remember being in the car and being like, my stomach hurts. I don't feel good. I can't go to school today. And like thinking of myself now, I'd be like, you're fine. You don't have a fever. Go to school. But my mom was like, oh, okay, we can go home. But I remember I didn't really. I mean, I had the anxiety stomach ache, right? So it says here, you would have health problems such as headache or an upset stomach. So it's like little anxious nerves. But anyway, so that was a one-time, anxiety occurrence. Fortunately, I did not have an anxiety disorder. And then Ask has some other really great information here. So during this series, I'm going to tell you, like next week, we're going to talk specifically about class lessons, and I'm going to give you strategies you can use in those, then groups, then individual sessions, and so on. So this episode is just more of like an introduction and general talking about anxiety before we dive deeper into everything. So I'm not going to talk about too many strategies today. I'm just kind of prepping you guys. But I did see on the Ask website their strategies. So I did just want to list them out so I don't leave you like completely empty hanging today. So you can have some kind of strategy to take with you to work today. And then some of these I'm going to revisit deeper in later episodes this month. But I really like this one. They call it the 5 whys. So you ask a question about why they're anxious, and then you follow it up with 4 more questions, all starting with why. So for example, why are you anxious about the test? And then the student may say, I must get good grades, and a test counts 80% of my final grade. And then you say, why is it important to get good grades? And they say, I want to have happy parents. Why is it important to have happy parents? And so on, right? So it gets them just to kind of work through that anxious thought and kind of dig a little deeper. And they also recommend things, and again, these are things that we're probably already doing with kids, or you probably hear these so many times, like take deep breaths, like how many times we're going to talk about that. But it is important to know that it is truly effective. So their list here says deep breathing, grounding, imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, positive self-talk and affirmations, journaling, and desk yoga. And again, you can, another tip they said that I think is super important, they had a little paragraph on there. Again, I'll link to this in the show notes so you can reference it yourself. But they were talking about how you can help teachers so then they can help the class. So if you sometimes it's easier to teach teachers so then they can teach more students. So you can kind of be in more than one place at a time. And I've talked about that before on the podcast. But if you kind of do a little crash course with teachers on grounding techniques, and then the teachers can then help their students with the grounding techniques. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you don't feel anxious about all of this information. Anyways, I want to invite you guys. I am doing a free live training tonight on how you can use individual counseling curriculum to engage students and effectively track data. So again, it's a free live training. I'm doing one tonight and one tomorrow night. There's 2 different times, so pick the one that works best for you. I think tonight is 6 p.m. Eastern and tomorrow is 5 p.m. Eastern. So pick the time that works best for you. We'll put a link to the show notes, or you can just go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training. So stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training to sign up. And I'm giving away a freebie to everyone who attends. So all attendees will get one of my individual counseling curriculums. So super excited about that. So I hope I see you guys tonight. And if not tonight, hopefully tomorrow. And if not, then I will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.